Live from Alvarado, Texas. Yes, I'm here visiting Dike Hadsell, who was Helene Hadsells' son, for the past few days after attending the Tar Heel Sweepstakes Club Spring Banquet in Mooresville, North Carolina. Yes, there is quite a distance between the two. It took me 2 days to drive from Mooresville to Alvarado. And then I've spent the last several days with Dike, and I'll spend a little more time with him tomorrow morning before I start heading back. Now, there may be one or two more stops. I'm still trying to figure out the rest of the schedule, but it was fantastic to see him. One of the stops on the way is I will be having a short visit with Melissa Waters, who is Helene Hadsells' granddaughter. So it's been really an exciting and tiring few days, just catching up and talking to Dike and getting stories. And we tried doing a little filming today. I hope the video turned out, because it turns out I had the wrong microphone. So I'm hoping I set up 2 cameras and I filmed it in 2 different ways. So I'm hoping that one of the audios worked out, because we also couldn't film inside. We were out in the garden in front of the meditation pyramid she had in the backyard, in the courtyard. It's very cool. So it was really great to hear his stories and his versions of what happened and the timeline of things. It was over 50 years ago, so sometimes things are a little bit hard to remember. But some things were really interesting. Like, I discovered on this trip that Dike is highly intuitive. And the 2 times, the one story that Helene wrote about in the book was when he was home and he answered the phone and she won a truck. He was out in the garage working on his vehicle because it needed some repair. And for some reason, he says, I don't know why, I just stopped what I was doing. I went into the house and I stood in front of the phone, wondering what. Like, he really obviously listened to his intuition. He stood in front of the phone and it rang, and he saw the sign and he answered it properly, and he won his mother a vehicle, which is really crazy. So she wrote about the story, but she didn't tell the part where he was following his intuition. Maybe she didn't even know that part of the story. And we just learned about it now because maybe he never had any reason to tell anybody. The other time was he was asleep and he woke up in the middle of the night and he went and stood in front of the phone, and he's like, what am I doing here? And then it was New Year's Eve, and they got a call from his dad that was the night they were in the car accident. That's talked about in the second book, In Contact with Other Realms. Well, no, actually, I think that, did they add that story into, did she add that one into the Name It and Claim It game? I've edited all 4 books, and after a while, some of the stories start to blur together, and I don't remember which one is in what. But it was really interesting to hear that he just intuitively knew, like, he was so connected energetically to his parents, that when something was terribly wrong or right, he knew, and he was right there, which I find extremely fascinating. Now, if you have any questions about what Dike and I have been talking about over the last several days, or any questions about Helene Hadsells or anything along those lines, please leave me a comment and I'll answer that question. Otherwise, I'm just going to talk about the last few days. One of the things I did was in 2022, well, let me even go back further. Dike was or technically, I guess he still is, the president of Delta Sciences. And Helene had set that up. So she made him president, and his wife Fiona was secretary, and she was the treasurer on the incorporated business, which worked out well because when she passed, Dike was still president. And so when I approached him about what Helene and I had talked about my maintaining her legacy, because in 2008, she said, you need to teach maneuvers for witchcraft. It took me a hot minute to pick up the torch and start running with it, but she had asked me that. And so when I approached him and said, if I don't own the rights and something happens to you, then all our work is still lost. And so because he was president, I was able to buy the rights off him. Had she been president and nothing had been done with the business, that wouldn't have been possible. So it actually worked out in helping to maintain her legacy. And part of that was taking the remains of her business files to help maintain that legacy. Of course, we all know what happened. And so finally, after a couple of years, I was able to go down because, it wasn't possible to fly down. So I drove down and went through her library and took books that I felt would help. So, for example, anything Silva related, because she worked with Jose Silva, any of the books that she talked about in her books, so I could reference them and teach from them, things like that. I brought them all home. And then the last couple of years, I've been working with her books as I was publishing the last one, and I've been creating the Audible, and I've been starting to translate them into languages. I started realizing that maybe there was other books I should have brought home that I was too quick to dismiss as resource materials. Now, I did max out my space in my car at the time, so I don't know how I would have brought more stuff home anyway. At any rate, I took the opportunity on this trip to just do another whirl around her library and see what else I can get. So I've obtained some photographs that I'm hoping to share, some new ones, because if we look for Helene on the internet, it's the same pictures being shared over and over and over again. I did get a few new ones that we could share on the last trip, but obviously I'm hoping to find some new ones. Now, unfortunately, I also discovered that Helene was not a keeper. And so there weren't as many photographs around as I would have liked to have found. So we'll see. I just took slides because that's what people used to use in the day. And we'll be sorting through those and finding ones. And actually, my audio producer, the one that's doing the Audible books, also digitizes slides. So he's going to be ensuring not only is the audio version of her books being maintained, he's going to help me with the visual legacy. And what's interesting is today, while talking to Dike, he said, Mother wanted to record her books. And I said, well, that's interesting, because what does she always say? There is no failure, only a delay in results. Helene wanted to create audiobooks. She put that intention out into the universe. And today, 2 out of the 4 books are on Audible. I am maybe a third to half of the way through the edits for the 3rd book. So it's very exciting that she had put the intention out there, and it is now coming to fruition, which is kind of amazing, because when you think of a goal that you set, you always assume that it will be within your lifetime. But sometimes some intentions are so powerful that they go through time and space, and someone else picks up your gauntlet and runs with it. And as she learned from Jose, and as I'm learning, as I'm in the Silva instructor training, one of the things we're here to do is leave the world better than we found it. And she absolutely did. And I'm hoping through the work that I'm doing for myself, for her, for other authors, and what I'm learning and teaching and sharing will leave the world a better place. So far, so good. And I'm having a heck of a lot of fun doing it because honestly, I love road trips. So even though the drive has been very long, and yes, I have been doing this road trip by myself, just like I did the last time. There's a lot. Thank goodness for podcasts, for online classes, and for Audible, because I listen to other Audible books too. And that's what I've been doing for most of the trip, along with occasionally some music when I get tired of listening to people speak. But it's been a great way to catch up on some of the things I've been meaning to listen to and learn auditorially as I drive. It's fantastic. So I highly recommend that as a tool. Now, this is something that people didn't have in the past. And this is why cell phones are so fantastic, because I plug my phone into the car. It's got the map. It's got the music. It's got all the voice commands. I don't even have to take my hand off the wheel. It's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. And some days I've packed my car so well. I'm a master packer, and I just stop for, get some gas, wash and break, get a cup of coffee or a tea or something else to drink, and back on the road. And so I've been doing TikToks and videos. I tried to create a Facebook album, but it didn't work. So I deleted all the pictures I uploaded because they couldn't move. And I don't understand Facebook sometimes. It's not my favorite social media platform. But it is a good one because I am able to live stream both on YouTube and Facebook and talk about the adventure and what it's like talking to Dike. And he's the last one of his family. His sister, Pamela, she passed away when she was around 40. She was very ill. And then about, I think he said 20 years ago, his dad passed. So he predeceased Helene. And then several months before Helene passed away, Chris had been ill. He had COPD, not from smoking, but from being in the military and being exposed to some chemicals. And he passed away about 6 months before Helene did. And then she went, and that was in 2010. So Dike's been the only one left in his family. Now, I mean, he has family. He's married. He's got stepchildren, this kind of thing. But I mean, in his immediate family, he's the last one left. And so we'll have to, hopefully he'll be here for a while, but you never know, which is one of the reasons when I had an opportunity to come back 2 years later, I grabbed it, because we do not know what tomorrow brings. And we have to take every opportunity, and because now is the only time there is. And so when you see an opportunity, you have to seize it, because that's one of the things a lot of people regret, is they had opportunities that they didn't take. There is a quote somewhere where somebody said, I think it's actually Wayne Gretzky, you only regret the shots you didn't take. So even if he didn't get a goal, he would regret not at least attempting to get the goal. So that's how I see it. So I came down here to talk to Dike. So yeah, I'm in the hotel, live streaming from Alvarado, Texas. And I have to admit, that's the quandary of a road trip, right? When you travel, you love the traveling and the adventure and the new things you see and the food and the people and the connections. Like we had yesterday, there's a large Asian mall about half an hour from here with a special Vietnamese restaurant that he just loves. So he took me all the way out there. And that was, we had a really lovely late lunch, and then came back. And then today he had a friend come over, and the three of us, we all went for Mexican. I had Tex-Mex for lunch, which was fantastic. It was the same place His wife Fiona and I went last year. Unfortunately, Fiona wasn't feeling well this trip, and I wasn't able to spend much time with her. I did spend some time chatting with her and just catching up briefly, but she said it's sometimes that happens when you age. It doesn't. It isn't fun. And so hopefully she'll be better in the next few days, and she will be able to carry on with what she loves to do. Anyway, Dike and I then today had an open day. So I came over, and he likes to go to Whataburger and hang out with all the old fellas, and they chat. So I went and sat with them for a little bit as they rambled on about all the things that they do. It was fun. And then I came back here and got all my video equipment and went over because I was going to sit and interview Dike, but he wanted to plant first. So we went out into the backfield. There's 5 acres, and he was digging he used a post hole digger to big holes for the squash. Then he realized we needed to cut the grass. Then he got a hose caught on the lawnmower, and we untangled that. And then he had me, I've got some, I'll be sharing pictures and video. I was planting cantaloupe, which was fascinating to me because I can't grow cantaloupe where I am. Maybe we can. Maybe there is a season for it. I've never thought to try and grow it. We have tried watermelon in the past. He's also planning to plant watermelon, but he has some of those great big like aluminum raised beds containers that a lot of farmers use for raised beds. And so he had that and that. So I was tilling the soil, and I'm thinking, I'm not dressed for this, but I'm out in the garden anyway. Thankfully, I had my hiking shoes on. I did have enough sense to wear my hiking shoes. And so I took some video and pictures of me out there digging away. And actually it was good because I didn't wear gardening gloves. I didn't have any. Normally I wear gardening gloves. And actually I thought it was pretty good because if anybody has seen the documentary on earthing, when you're touching the soil, more importantly with your feet, it reduces inflammation. It's very healing to be working with the dirt, so to speak. And so I actually enjoyed it. And I did talk to all the cantaloupes as I planted them. So I hope he has a bumper crop later this year, because I showed love to each one of those plants that I planted. There's actual studies that shows that works. I believe that those studies stem from Dr. Emoto's work with the water. And so we spent the day, the morning rather, mucking around the back. Then we all went out and had lunch, and then we came back, and I figured out I had to set up the tripod and the camera and everything. And I discovered I didn't have the right adapter for the microphone. I didn't bring it with me. I'm thousands of kilometers and hundreds of miles from home. And of course, we're in Alvarado. There's no Best Buy around the corner like there is at home. And so I said, oh, well, we're going to use the mic that came with the camera. And that's why I set up my phone and my camera. And I hope it picks up the sound really well. We're going to find out because I haven't edited the video yet. I might not even have time till I get home because it's a big job. We shall see what happens anyway. So I hope that that works out. And it was just nice hearing his stories of his life adventures, like his first wife learned to enter sweepstakes because Helene taught her to. Of course she did. Now, what was interesting is what Helene really liked was the contests. And that makes sense because she's really good with words. Like if you read her books, she loves wordplay, which is what you really needed when you entered contests. If you saw the movie The Prize Winner of Defiance, Ohio, you saw the history of how from contesting to sweepstaking. And I believe one of the reasons that occurred was money. judging agencies weren't required and more people would enter, which would allow the company to reach its marketing goals. So companies preferred sweepstakes because they were going to reach a larger number of potential customers and draw attention to their products or services, whatever they were promoting. And it was easier to enter because you just filled out an entry blank and put it in the bin or mailed it in, whatever it was. There was no online in those days or social media. Actually, Helene was alive when YouTube was going, but she also wasn't technically savvy, which is another reason she didn't do a lot of recordings. Like Dike said, they had given her a tape recorder and said, Mom, record some stuff. And I found a couple of tapes and I've put some of them online so you can hear them on YouTube, or you can go to my website, wordsforwinning.com, and look at the blog posts. And I have put direct audio files on my site that you can download and listen to, or just hear them, as YouTube does change the audio format a little bit. And some people did complain that it was some of them were very difficult to hear. So I put the direct audio file on my website. Now that came from the fact that the tapes and diskettes and everything in the house, her house was just shut after she passed. And so there was no, air conditioning and things. So these medias were subjected to the climate. So, if there was humidity, if there was cold, if there was heat. And so some of the tapes degraded a bit. Now, my audio producer that's helping me with the audiobooks cleaned the files up the best he could. And one was so damaged after he finished capturing the tape, it snapped. It was so brittle. Thankfully, and he cleaned it up as best he could. And there was a couple of them I had to listen. It didn't even sound like Helene. Like, it was so degraded. But if you really listen to it, you could hear her cadence and you're like, oh yeah, that is her. That is her. And so those are being, some of them are being worked on, and I'll be adding those to the site as soon as I get a chance. And you can listen to Helene's adventures there. And some of them, like there's one where it's only tape 2. I only ever found tape 2 of a 3-tape series. And I even double checked. I looked again. I never found anything. Oh, well, I looked, I tried. They just weren't kept, or she never did them, or they were lost. Like, who knows what happens to things, right? Yeah, I even brought a mug with me. I've learned that the hotels don't always have great cups. And if I want to heat anything in the microwave, the paper cups or the styrofoam cups, the paper cups burn. And so I brought a travel mug with me, and it's my spec. It's my spec on one side. I'm lucky on the other. That's my travel tip for this video. But yeah, on a road trip, you need a good cooler full of snacks and things that you need on the road. And that's what this is one of the things I packed, because I've done enough road trips to know that it's really handy. It's really handy to have your own mug. And yes, I do have my favorite Buc-ee's travel mug that I bought for a whopping $10. It keeps stuff pretty hot, but it's not like one of the really good thermal, like a Yeti or something that's going to keep your coffee hot for a long time. But it does the job, and I like Buc-ee. It's a great place to stop. Of course, I had my brisket on the road already and the chips. But usually I can only take one trip of that, because I do like to eat other places anyway. And I need my fruits and vegetables too. You can't just eat road food. But it was really good to talk to Dike. And like I said, I took another round through her books. Now, what was really funny is when we had lunch, he talked about this book that he thought was fantastic. And it was called Who Do You Think You Are? Or no, Who's the Matter with You? That's what it was. And he said, Who's the matter with you? And I said, Great. Now you're going to make me go back in. So what I did was, because the house is a little dim and there's a couple of lights that weren't working, I took my phone and turned the flashlight on, and I went book by book, and I found it. So I made sure I took it. So now I'm going to read that one. I'm sure I'm going to find some bits of gold in there. And that's what one of the things that I took. So I just went through it and took some additional books, things like that, things that I realized I should have taken the first time. And it was just good to spend time with Dike. You know, I wish they had a little more space or something so I could stay longer. But it's not really possible because I am taking Silva instructor training, and I have to be at the 2-day intensive, which is actually happening during the upcoming solar eclipse. So we will be having a break during our training to witness that event. But I find it very fascinating that on the last solar eclipse, it was talked about that in the astrological arena, it said that whatever you're doing that day, you're going to be focusing on for the next 20 years. And that's where I was on January 20th. And then on April 8th, again, another eclipse. And I will be in Silva training. So it's clearly an indicator of what I need to do. And one of the things that I'm working on is actually catching up on the studying, because I've had so much going on that I've actually gotten a little behind on those that studying. So it seems that getting home a smidge early will allow me to catch up on that, and then go to the training in early April and witness some of the more fabulous astrological or astronomical events that are happening across the US and Canada. It's very exciting. Unfortunately, where my house is, I was at 99.9 percentile of totality, and going up to Quebec, I lose like 1% or 2%. Darn. So I'm actually moving away from the 100%. It is what it is. Anyway, I just here in Alvarado, feeling so blessed that I'm getting to maintain Helene's legacy and share all her wonderful teachings with you, and discover more about her by talking to her son Dike, and getting all of her stories out. I'm publishing some of them in multiple languages. They're becoming Audible based, and she's not the only one I'm working on. I'm almost finished Money and You by Tag Powell, who in a way is part of Helene's story because he was her second publisher. So it's very interesting that I'm working with him and her legacy because he passed last August. And so I wasn't able to finish a book in time for him to see it. However, he did see what I had done with Helene's work. He did get to see the new website that I had designed. He was very excited to see that. And so I'm going to do my best to honor him as well as I'm doing Helene. Now, if you have any questions, I'm going to wrap it up because it's been a long day planting cantaloupes and working with Dike in his huge gardens in the greenhouse. It was a lot of fun, just putzing around out there. I can see why he enjoys living here on the same property that his mother, because it had 2 buildings. So her original house is currently not being used, and what was the Delta Sciences Center, where the students came and stayed when they took courses from her, is now where Dike lives. It's very fascinating that they transformed that space into their home, and it's really lovely that he gets to be there. Anyway, thank you. You're welcome. And yes, I have been having safe travels. A superwoman. Sometimes I feel like that. Sometimes I don't. it's quite the adventure. Because I am missing home. Of course, you miss your own bed. I have the sense to bring my own pillow when I'm driving. So that is a bit of a relief. And stay tuned on the socials as I post videos. I'm catching up on sharing the videos from the trip. So stay tuned for that. And until next month, I'm also hoping to have some other guests here on Words for Winning, as I haven't had an opportunity to book guests and interview them on this channel as it's growing, because I've also been focusing on Contest Queen. Yes, running double social media channels sometimes can be challenging. Yes, I got through half the Silva mind control method. I need to finish it up and then reread. Yes, and make notes. But one of the things I have learned through taking the Silva method, which Helene did countless times because, of course, she assisted Jose, was the meditation portion is really the key. And there's all different kinds of meditations you will read in the book. Now, the description of the meditations for me sometimes was a little hard to understand. Thankfully, I'm in a course, so I see them live. If you're not in the benefit of being in a course, one, you can come to a free Silva introductory class, the same that Helene took when she started down that path. Also, in April, I'm going to be assisting with one, and then I'm going to be running one at the end of April. So if you want to see what that was all about, you can come for free. The dates are on my website. If you scroll down to the bottom, there's a pinned post there. You can read all about it and register. Again, it is free. Then the other thing is you can go to YouTube and look for the different types of meditation. So there's like the centering exercise. There's the cleaning of the mind exercise. There's the long relax. There's the short relax. There's the glove anesthesia, which is what Helene used to stop her nose bleeding when she was in that terrible car accident. So that was a Jose Silva technique that she used called glove anesthesia. There's all types of them. So as you go through the book, write down the types of the meditations and, like centering exercises, things like that, and read out the description. It will help you to read them out loud. I have found it so profound to read things like that out loud, because when you're reading, just reading with your eyes, there's something different when you're reading it with your eyes, speaking it out loud, and then you're hearing it. It hits different. I found, as I was doing the Audible books, things that Helene had written in her books that I had edited, I can't tell you how many times, but as I was speaking them, whoa, did it ever hit different? I thought, I was thinking as I'm talking, this is completely profound. And how did I not realize how deep this is? Like, she really, really wove metaphysical lessons into her sweepstakes stories, like brilliantly. So I recommend you read out loud those parts of the book, and you will find they will hit different than just, quietly reading a book. And then, so find all of the meditations and then go on YouTube, and there's all different teachers. There's some of Jose doing them himself. There's some with Vishen Lakhani, who is of Mind Valley, who worked with Jose and licensed his Ultramind system. And so some of the exercises are the same. And so there's him doing the meditations that you can take. And there's other people. There's some from Laura Silva herself. There's some from other Silva teachers. Like I found some of the meditations from Ireland. Love the accent. So go through and find them if you would like some help. And sometimes they also help. When you listen to them, I recommend earbuds or ear headset, because it tunes out all the other noise. One of the instructors in my course with me, what he does is he puts in noise canceling earbuds, not on, just to block out the noise. So when he meditates, all he can hear is his heartbeat and his breathing, because he's blocked the external noise. So it brings everything in, and he finds that really helps. So I hope that helps you. Or wear earbuds, because in those meditations, they a lot of times play the alpha sound. And I believe that will help you with that. Now, that's something Helene didn't have the luxury of doing until later, because the technology wasn't there. We are really blessed to have the technologies that we do now, because we can do things that Helene, Jose, and Tag, and all these other teachers never could. Like, for example, I'm sitting here in a hotel room, wirelessly broadcasting to literally the world. How crazy is that? And that's live, and then it gets archived. And so for the people that weren't here today, they can just watch on demand at any time. Or if you want to review this, you just come back to my YouTube channel or come back to my Facebook page and watch it again. This is amazing technology that we have now that we can use to learn and better ourselves. So those are my tips that I've learned as I've gone through the Silva training and working with Helene's work as I am using new technologies myself. The other thing I had to do, which I found very interesting, is I had to change some of the verbiage that Helene used in her original books, because even though when you read them, they were fine, when I spoke them, they sounded very odd. So I had to change sometimes a word or sentence structure, or, I had to flip something so that when I read it out loud, it made perfect sense. So when somebody's driving along and listening to the Audible book, it flows seamlessly. And then, of course, then I fixed the paperback and the ebook to match, because Amazon owns ACX, which is the Audible backup, and they have something called Whisper Sync. So if you're reading the book and listening to it at the same time, they match. Now, not 100%, because in the book, for example, it says, I have an exciting challenge for you, dear reader. Well, of course, on Audible, I can't use dear reader. I had to say, I have an exciting challenge for you, dear listener. So there are other things that I had to change. Oh, great. I hope they do. Message me and let me know if they work. Now, those tips, some of them are universal, like the reading out loud. You can do that with any book, not just the Silva method. I highly recommend it. It's really interesting exercise to use, especially if it's, we're not going to do it with our cozy romance or spy novels or sci-fi fiction. It's not quite the same. But when you're reading books like the Silva Method to help improve yourself, it's a it's a good tip. Anyway, on that note, I'm going to sign off until next month. Every month I do a live stream on some of the things I've learned in the past month or a specific topic. And I'm looking forward to start having guests on this channel this year as I produce more content, because I also have the crazy goal of publishing 12 editions or 12 books. And the Spanish edition of In Contact with Other Realms is currently out. I'm almost finished with Money and You. I'm almost finished with the Audible edition of A Man Called Friday, which will then be translated into Spanish. So there's 4 right there. And it's only April, so I'm on track. So far, so good. Let's see how this work. See how this year turns out. And that's all you can do, is set a goal and keep going. So until next time, as Helene Hadsells says, there is no failure, only a delay in results.